Hey there, baseball fans. Nathan Rohde here with Prep Baseball Report with another episode of Coffee and Curveballs. We got Shooter Hunt again with us today. He's going to talk about his Minnesota preseason action, a little quick weekend trip he made out there. But we're also going to have David Seifert on, our Director of College Scouting, to talk about his weekend. So looking forward to another great show as always, Shooter.
Yeah, Minnesota, great time up there. I lucked into some nice days, up to 50 degrees, even though we were inside. But just like last year, it was the event of the season. Just guys after guys, uncommitted 19s, 20s, 21s, all over. And then I'm excited to hear what Sife's got to say because SEC play kicked into gear.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll get into that Minnesota preseason stuff in a little bit. But first off, let's bring in David Seifert, Director of College Scouting for D1 Baseball and Prep Baseball Report. David, thanks so much for joining us again today.
Hey, thanks, Rhodes. Good to be here. It's been a while.
Yeah, so David, this weekend you went down to Ole Miss, saw them take on the Volunteers of Tennessee. The main focus being for the weekend seeing left-hander Ryan Ralston. Tell us what you saw out of him.
Ralston was real good. He ended up losing the game, but his line is not really doesn't show how well he pitched. He was up to 94 early in the game, pretty much pitched 90, 93 with good sink on his fastball. But as we all know, his bread and butter, his ticket to the big leagues is his breaking ball. I always thought it was a curveball. That's what I saw this past summer, and that's kind of what he's known for. But after looking at it and talking to a few more people, he's actually kind of evolved it into more of a slider, 80, 83 miles per hour, just disappearing under bats. So he was real good. He looks the part. He's got a starter's arm action, starter's delivery, throws strikes. He's in the SEC. He's a proven guy. So he's living up to his potential, billing as a first rounder, definitely top 10 overall, most likely.
Wow. We talk about some of those guys at the top, and there's a good mix of guys. When you're looking at that number one spot, there's a lot of of prospects that can make a case for it across both levels, college and high school. We've got Matt Libator there right now. Casey Mize has had a really good start to the year, but given Ralston's performance in the SEC, track record, as well as just his left-handedness, I mean, am I crazy to think that this guy should be talked about as a 1-1 potential guy?
Yeah, I would think so, and especially with the Detroit Tigers' liking for college pitchers, from the SEC. But yeah, he has a lot of separators. I mean, his breaking ball separates him from others. His left-handedness does, as well as he's almost a year younger, than anybody else. He's draft eligible by age, but he's really, he is a sophomore, so he's 9 months younger than most other guys in the draft this year.
Excellent. And then you also saw another draft-eligible sophomore, this one for Tennessee, now closing games, and Zach Lingenfelter. He's a guy that, we have some history with on the high school side. Saw him, at that level, obviously, a couple of years ago. Big, strong kid. How'd he look for you in that role?
He looked real good. His delivery, the effort to his delivery, he looks more like a reliever. He threw only maybe 3 sliders in his 2 1/3 innings, but mostly just, challenged the Ole Miss hitters with his fastball, had some sink on it. One pitch was up to 96, but he pitched at 93, 95. Aggressive kid, athletic. He looks the part. Really, if he can develop his secondary and refine his delivery a little bit, kind of easy effort and become more pitcher than thrower, he could easily scoot into the top 2 or 3 rounds. But what I saw in the 2 innings that I saw, 2 1/3 innings that I saw on Friday night, probably looked more like a 4th round type guy, a reliever, bullpen arm. But again, athletic, quick arm, good extension. There's a lot of things to like with him, but I think he just needs that refinement.
Do you think, because college relievers, I think, get tagged with this quite a bit. Is he a guy that, though he is a college reliever, you think could, move quickly through the minor leagues?
If I would have seen a better second pitch, right now I just saw the fastball. He challenged with it. It was working, so he went with it. Saw a few sliders, but it certainly wasn't out pitch quality. So I would say probably not a quick mover, but I think he would be a guy, man, if you could just get your hands on him to develop him and mold him. Again, there's athleticism, there's arm speed, there's a lot of things to like with him.
Excellent. Sounds like a good weekend for you. It sounds like, though, from our conversations that your next couple of weekends could be pretty awesome. Hopefully, knock on wood, the weather holds for you. But what do you have coming up the next couple of weeks?
Oh, it gets really good. On Friday, I get to see Sean Hageli from Kentucky go against Casey Mize from Auburn. Games at Kentucky. The following weekend, the Thursday before Easter, I get to go see Logan Gilbert from Stetson. And then on Friday, Brady Singer at Florida, and Saturday, Jackson Kowar at Florida. So it only gets better from here. Kind of line it up this way on purpose just to really see the top arms within the same 2-3 week span when I was looking into it in the preseason. So, yeah, let's hope the weather holds, and let's go.
Excellent.
Nice.
Well, David, that's great insight from the college side today. We appreciate you joining us and looking forward to hearing more, especially after that run you make next couple of weeks.
Thanks, Rod. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. Let's go back now to Shooter Hunt. Shooter, you made a quick trip out to Minnesota, like seriously quick. Like you flew from Portland to Minnesota and we're back within like 36 hours. Just tell us real quick, about the event that you were at and what you saw overall.
Well, I was really excited to get to this because last year this ended up being the premier event. Guys like Max Carlson, Matt Horvath, Ryan Sleeper, Drew Gilbert, Will Frisch, all these guys popped up at this event for me and ended up being big national names throughout last summer. So getting back to this, it's about 250, 270 kids, like you said, in 24 hours or so. I think the first event or the first session was 3 to 8 on Saturday, and the next one popped off at 8 to 1. Sunday morning. So quick in and out, but a lot of talented players. Again, Minnesota doesn't get picked through like a Florida or a Texas or even Southern California, where the kids are really committed early because they get eyes on them so much. These Minnesota kids, they kind of bloom and blossom late. So coaches getting up there a little later on, they're able to find some hidden gems per se. But right off the bat, kid Sam Hunt, who we've talked about before, actually committed to Vanderbilt just days before I got up to Minnesota. He's a catcher, 21 class, 6'2", 190, going to be even bigger than that. And he's a switch hitting catcher. So at the plate, it's a presence. And the ball just comes off his bat. The bat stays in the zone so long, Brody. I was like, it's almost like the barrel should pay rent because it's just like in there, and the ball explodes off. But it's going to be easy power from both sides, and it's really balanced, especially for such a young kid, for his approach at the plate in a batting practice session, just to be real mature there. And then behind the plate, it works really well. But he's one going forward that is a big national name, and he's still some years away from draft talk, but it's just the frame right now. It looks like it could be something like that.
Yeah, if he's 6'2", 190, committed to Vanderbilt, switch hitting, I don't see how you not think about, what his, draft status might be, even though he is only a 2021. But then on the pitching side, you also saw Will Anderson, a left-hander, stands at 6 foot, 175, a member of the 2019 class. Tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, he hopped on the mountain. Right now, 2019s, for the most part across the country, the big-time names have committed. It's just the way that the recruiting process has moved. Sure. So when Will Anderson hopped on the mound and touched 88, was working 85, 86 from the left side with what looked like electric stuff. The ball was just coming out of his hand, some late life to it, fastball riding through the zone. But the secondary stuff really stood out to me. The changeup had that late fading action. He threw it aggressively, and it was strikes the entire time. Then the breaking ball, which is a slider. Seifert just talked about Ralston, just disappearing under bats. I could see the same thing happening with Anderson in the future. But he really has a chance to be a guy that I think a lot of coaches will be flocking up into Minnesota to check out.
And then you also had a kid actually come over from Iowa in Carter Baumler, 6'1", 178-pound, 2020.
Now, we've known a little bit about Baumler for a while now. Rob Allison, our director in Iowa and Minnesota, has told me about him for a while and has that football player frame. So he's 6'1", 178 pounds, looks like a wide receiver. I think he played football for a while, but is now focusing more on the baseball side of things. But definite outfield type frame, moves around well out there. But then he hopped on the mound and worked 89 to 90, and it was effortless, just coming out of his hand with ease. Also showed feel for the changeup and the breaking ball, which has a chance to be a really good swing and miss pitch for him. But more than anything, that athleticism and just the way he stands on the mound is something that coaches are going to want to check out more.
Excellent. And then Connor, I'm looking hard at this name, make sure I get it right. Connor Kirchhoffner, another 2020, stands at 6'2", 190. Also a right-hander on the mound. Sounds like he was pretty impressive for you as well.
Yeah, Kirchhoffner's a guy that had popped up at this event last year. So he hopped on the mound with Max Carlson, and I looked at both of them like, who are these guys? And Kirchhoffner has really stepped forward, made those strides over the last year, looks a little bit thicker, has matured. It was a real easy 87, 88, but he's aggressive down the mound, gets that angle, really working downhill. I think he's going to throw harder in the future. Hopefully he's at the future games throwing hard like that in August. Mm-hmm. But again, the secondary stuff, it was that power changeup type deal with late fade to it. And the breaking ball is something that I wrote down and starred as a pitch that could develop into one of those swing and miss type pitches in the future. It's really tight, 11-5 breaker. And obviously this was just a bullpen in March. They're just starting practice in the next couple of days. Mm-hmm. But at 6'2", 190, he's got that prototypical pitcher's frame, and he's a name that I think people around the country are going to really start to remember moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And then lastly, from the Minnesota preseason event, Mitchell Casperson. Sounds like a possible two-way guy, 2020. Just tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, Casperson, not the biggest guy, about 5'9", 150 right now, and just starting to grow. But he stepped up to the plate from the left-hand side, really smooth swing, balanced in the box. Then at shortstop, he moved around really well, especially for a northern kid that usually don't have the same as a Southern California shortstop. But he moved around well, really sure-handed. And then on the mound, it was a loose arm, so he has a chance to be a two-way guy. But overall, from last year where we had all these national big names pop up to this year, I thought that the hitters in the underclass side really stood out. Where last year, even a Mac Horvath at the event, he swung it well, but it wasn't an eye-opener like he was at the future games. Whereas I thought there were a bunch of guys who we're going to be putting out some more content from this event because there were just so many guys. But the bats really stood out to me, along with obviously those big Minnesota physical frames when they hop on the mound.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And real quick, before we wrap things up, I had a quiet weekend here in North Carolina. Saw Duke in Miami on Friday night. But then on Saturday, I checked out a junior college arm that's been getting a little bit of buzz lately in left-hander Julian Smith. He's at Catawba Valley Community College. He had, I think he had Tommy John recently, he had it, and so he's coming back now, and he's a redshirt sophomore, I believe. But it's an interesting arm. It's a quick arm. He's fairly athletic, high leg kick, fights a little bit of stiffness on his front leg. The fastball ranged from 88 to 91 in this outing. Didn't have a ton of life. The breaking ball flashed the potential to be average. So got in there. There were a few scouts there to see him. So he's an interesting arm from the JUCO ranks to keep an eye on as we move forward.
Nice.
But Shooter, what do you got next? What's coming up on your schedule?
Well, this week I'm hoping to stay here in Oregon and see one of the top 2020 arms in the country. A kid named Mick Abel. He's committed to Coach Nate Yeske, the pitching coach at Oregon State. So really excited to finally get to see him because I chased him around last year as a freshman. But the Portland sunshine, which is just rain, kept me away from seeing him. So hoping to see him this week, so I'll have a report back from there. What do you got going?
Well, for me, I'm hoping to finally start a pretty good run. I did go Florida, Georgia early in the season, which were good trips, but then I've kind of hit a lull here the last couple of weeks for various reasons. But starting Friday, things could really look up for me. Obviously, this is all dependent upon weather, so knock on wood, as always. But Friday, I'm hoping to see Owen White, who had a really good outing last week. It sounds like that report will be in the high school draft notebook. That's on prepbaseballreport.com. So I'm going to see him in his follow-up to last week. And then on Monday, I'm going to venture down to South Carolina. There's a left-hander named Garrett McDaniels, who I saw last summer. It was pretty interesting arm. Sounds like he's gaining some attention in this area from scouts. So I'm going to go check him out. And then that leads right into the NHSI. So Tuesday are the workouts. and then the games are Wednesday to Saturday. So that's next week. And then right at the end of the NHSI, the day after, I get on a flight and I fly out to California, catch a day of the National Classic, and roll right into the Boris Classic.
Here we go.
So Friday, and then from there for the next 2 weeks, it could be a pretty good run of seeing some draft prospects. So fingers crossed that it holds up. So and hopefully from Rody, I'll have some Cassetta Stubbs and Schroeder reports. Jason Schroeder being from Washington, and as well as Damon Cassetta Stubbs, who's just over the border from you.
I'll be chasing them down, but also I'll be in the command center following along the college baseball season as always. So if you have any questions, be sure to shoot them my way.
Excellent. So thanks again to David Seifert for coming on today, talking some college prospects. Shooter with some great content, from Minnesota Preseason. Be sure to jump on prepbaseballreport.com. I'm sure there'll be plenty more content from that event, not only from Shooter, but also from Rob Allison. But as always, for Shooter Hunt, I'm Nathan Rohde. This is Coffee and Curveballs, and until next time, we'll see you guys at the ballpark.